So I've been thinking about this for a while, and I wanted to start a new series here on the channel. I want to talk about my favorite episode of each season of The Walking Dead. Now, not the best episode, not the most popular episode, just an episode that stayed with me and that I happen to enjoy the most of that season. It's the one that I still think about years later. And we're going to start with season 1, and there's really only one place to start to me. That's season 1, episode 1, Days Gone By. This is the episode that began the entire emotional journey of The Walking Dead. Before the spin-offs and before the arguments over which was best, before we all started ranking the seasons, this episode told us exactly what kind of story we were about to experience. From the very beginning, we met Rick Grimes after the world had already fallen. The Walker apocalypse has come and gone, and when we first see Rick, he is completely alone. No long explanation. And then we see the little zombie girl. And to me, what's really wild is how quickly this episode lets you know how different this show is. There's no big action beat to ease you in, no dramatic music telling you how to feel. Instead, the show opens quietly, almost gently. Rick walks through a highway cluttered with abandoned cars with a gas can. Everything feels frozen in time, and then we see her, the little girl. She's standing there, small and all alone, clutching a stuffed animal. And in that moment, you don't think, zombie show, you think, something is wrong, something deeply unsettling. The makeup on that first walker feels real in a way that most zombie shows never quite pull off. It's not over the top, it's subtle. The skin looks sick, not monstrous, human, but broken. And that's what pulled me in. I remember thinking, this is something special. This feels different. Then there's Andrew Lincoln's voice, shaky, scared, but still so kind, as Rick calls out to her. He talks to her like she's still alive, like she's still just a lost child who needs help. And when she turns, it is revealed that she's dead, a walker. The moment hits hard. She moves toward Rick, and Rick is forced to shoot her. Sure, it's bloody, there's a little bit of gore, but it's handled with restraint, almost like the show knows this moment matters. It doesn't feel like shock value. To me, it feels like art. The first minute and 2 seconds of The Walking Dead, the viewer understands exactly what kind of story this is going to be. And then the weight of all of it washes over Rick. He has just shot a child. In the silence that follows, you see who Rick Grimes is at his core. A man still holding on to what makes him human in a world that no longer rewards it. And, as a viewer, you are left with a question that carries through the early parts of the series. Can this version of this man, Rick, survive in this new world? And then the show cuts to the opening theme. That haunting tune starts to play, soft at first, and within seconds it becomes something iconic. It is one of those rare pieces of music where a fan only needs to hear a few notes and knows exactly what it is. You hear it, and it hits you all at once. Memories of characters long gone, moments that broke you, moments that made you cheer, losses you didn't expect to feel so deeply from a TV show. That music just doesn't just introduce an episode, it opens the door to an entire emotional history. That's how powerful The Walking Dead became. For a lot of us fans, that theme isn't just nostalgia. It's a reminder of where we were when we first watched it, who we watched it with, and how that story stayed with us for all these years. And the fact that all of that starts right here in that very first episode, well, it says everything. Before we knew how big the show would become, before we knew how much the show would hurt, it already had us. And then, after that, we're introduced to Shane Walsh. He and Rick are partners sitting in the car talking over lunch like it's just a normal day. And it was then. And I'll be honest with you here, while Rick Grimes became my favorite character by the end of the first season, especially as a father myself, watching him search for his family, for his son Carl in the beginning, well, Shane was my favorite character that first episode. He was funny. He felt real. That opening story he tells about his girlfriend leaving lights on around the house to cheer Rick up while Rick is struggling in his marriage with Lori, is such a small human moment. It's the kind of conversation real friends have. Shane isn't trying to fix Rick. He's trying to make him laugh. He's just trying to be there for him. And then everything changes. They get the call about the bank robbery, and suddenly the normalcy is gone. The chaos hits fast, sirens, shouting, confusion, and in the middle of all of that, Rick is shot. What stands out to me in that moment is how clear it is that Shane genuinely cares about Rick. There's no hesitation, no second guessing. The scene ends with Shane holding pressure on Rick's wound, completely focused on trying to save his partner, his friend, as Rick blacks out from blood loss. It's such an important moment because it establishes that bond right away, before the world ends, before everything gets complicated, before the choices Shane will later make. Right here, he's just a good friend. After the shooting, the episode shifts in a really powerful way. We're given a first-person view of the world as Rick experiences it while he's recovering. Everything feels distant, quiet, and uncertain. And without a single line of dialogue, the show lets us understand just how vulnerable he is. Shane visits Rick during this time, even as the world outside the hospital is beginning to fall apart. That detail always mattered to me. Because later in the series, we learn the full truth. Shane does ultimately leave Rick behind in that hospital bed, and on paper that sounds unforgivable. But what makes that moment so complicated and so tragic is that Shane also likely saved Rick's life. By barricading the hospital room door, Shane keeps the walkers out. He buys Rick time, and without that act, Rick probably never wakes up at all. That moment perfectly captures what The Walking Dead does best. Nothing is clean, nothing is simple. People aren't heroes or villains, they're just human, making impossible choices as the world collapses around them. After that, Rick wakes up. He is alone in a hospital bed, and we have no idea how much time has passed. Days? Weeks? Longer? Rick is thrown into this nightmare world with absolutely zero knowledge of how he even got there, or what the world has become. And what makes this moment so powerful is just how it's done. We don't get answers before Rick does. We learn things as he learns them. The show puts us directly in his shoes. It feels less like we're watching a character wake up and more like we're waking up with him. The hospital walls are covered in bullet holes. It is empty and littered with debris. Phones are useless. There's a half-devoured corpse on the floor. And then there are the doors, chained shut, painted with those now iconic words. Don't open, dead inside. After that, every step Rick takes feels heavier. Every hallway feels wrong, and as he moves through the dark stairwell and finally emerges into the daylight, we realize, right along with him, that the world he knew is now gone forever. We lived through this with Rick, and I still remember the first time I watched it. I remember sitting there in complete awe. I remember calling my stepfather and telling him, right as the credits rolled, that he had to check out this show. That would be the first of our Sunday night calls as we talked about what we had just experienced. In the next morning, I told my daughters that when they got home from school that afternoon, we had a new show to watch. That's how powerful that first episode was. It didn't just introduce a story, it created a moment. One that a lot of us still remember exactly where we were when we experienced it. There's another moment in episode 1 that made my jaw drop and instantly made this show a lot better than anything zombie related that I had ever seen. And trust me, I had seen a lot of zombie crap at that point. It's the moment when Rick, fresh out of the hospital, lays eyes on his first walker, the bicycle girl. To me, that moment alone is incredible. It's horrifying without being exaggerated. There's no spectacle for the sake of shock. It's just a body that shouldn't be alive. Well, it's not alive. It just shouldn't be moving. And then there's Rick's reaction. Andrew Lincoln plays it perfectly. Rick gasps. He stumbles back. There's pure, unfiltered horror on his face. He's not screaming. He's not overreacting. It's just a man seeing something his brain can't process yet. And that's what makes it work. It isn't the cheesy, top zombie stuff. There's no movie moment. He reacts the way a real person would react if they saw something like this for the first time. Confused, terrified, even frozen. And Andrew Lincoln completely sells it, and because of that, the moment feels real, grounded, and uncomfortable. That scene told me that this show respected its audience. It wasn't going to rely on cheap scares, it was going to let the horror sit in the quiet moments, in the reactions, in the reality of what the characters were facing. And here, once again, The Walking Dead proves in the first episode that this isn't just another zombie show. It's something else entirely. Then we meet Morgan and Dwayne Jones. They're the ones who finally explain the world to Rick. Everything he's missed while he was in a coma. What happened? How fast it fell? How people tried to survive when there were still rules before there really weren't anymore. They tell Rick that early on survivors from this area were encouraged to head toward Atlanta. And for the first time since waking up, Rick has something he hasn't had yet. A direction, a starting point in his search for his family. Eventually, Rick parts ways with Morgan and Dwayne after they raid the police department and the sheriff's station. They gear up, they arm themselves, and before they separate, they each take a walkie-talkie, just in case they can find each other again someday. Rick sets off on his search for his family, but Morgan, well, he has to do something unimaginable. He has to put down what's left of his wife after she was bitten and turned. That moment sits heavy over everything that follows. And then there's another quiet but powerful scene. Rick comes across the walker of a deputy that he knew before the fall. Someone he worked with, someone he used to be alive in his world. Rick shoots that walker too. And once again, it's handled with restraint. No one-liners, no dramatic pause, no spectacle. Just the sound of the gun and the walker dropping. It isn't shock. It isn't the gore for gore's sake. It is the show saying this is how things are now. And it does it in a way that most zombie media never does. And it makes the whole thing feel real. As Rick finally leaves his hometown behind to search for Carl and Lori, he stops one last time. He goes back to the park. Back to the bicycle girl. And before ending her suffering, he says something that tells us exactly what we need to know about who Rick Grimes is. He says, "I'm sorry this happened to you." I'm not gonna lie, that line gets to me every time. Even now, after everything, Rick still sees the person that she was, not just what she became. And with that, he gets in his car and drives off toward Atlanta, toward hope, and toward a world that's about to test that humanity at every turn. Before the episode ends, we go back to Morgan and Dwayne at the house they've taken refuge in. Morgan has a scoped rifle now, taken from the police station. He's got the distance, he's got the weapon, everything he should need to do what has to be done, and yet, he can't. He lines up the shot on what's left of his wife, now a walker, and he just can't pull the trigger. And I think it's important to say this. This isn't a moment of weakness. It's a moment of humanity. Morgan isn't failing to survive here. He's struggling to let go of the person she was, the woman he loved. And in that hesitation, the show makes something very clear. This story isn't really about zombies at all. It's about people. It's about what makes us human and how easily that can be taken from us. How the world forces these characters to shed pieces of themselves just to survive. And how the real fight becomes whether or not they can ever get that back. The idea is planted right here in episode 1, long before the body count rises and long before the lines get blurred. And that's why this episode still means so much to me. Because The Walking Dead doesn't ask, how do you kill the monsters? It asks, what does it cost you to stay human while you do it? We get a brief moment with another group of survivors, and this is where something important happens. We see that Shane made it. Now, at the time, we don't know who anyone is. We don't know names, we don't know relationships, but we do see a woman and a child among the group. And even without the context, you can feel it. This group is barely surviving. They're scavenging. They're exhausted. And we learn very quickly that Atlanta is not safe. Whatever hope people had about the city, it's already gone. Then the episode cuts back to Rick. He looks at a photo of his family, the one he took from the house, and suddenly it all clicks. We realize that 2 of the survivors we saw are his family, Lori and Carl, and in that same realization we also understand something else. Lori has started a relationship with Shane. And just like that, the emotional stakes of the show deepen. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about what happens to people when they think hope is gone and the choices they make because of it. Then, Rick finally makes it to Atlanta, and it's worse than anything we or he could have imagined. The city is completely overrun. Walkers are everywhere. Rick is overwhelmed, and almost immediately, he barely survives scrambling through the chaos and takes refuge inside a tank. He is trapped and surrounded. No way out. Inside the tank, Rick kills a walker, and then something unexpected happens. A voice comes through the tank radio. Someone is out there. Someone sees him. Someone offers help. And the episode ends with that final shot, the camera pulling back, showing the tank swallowed by walkers. And I remember thinking, I'm in. Completely, no hesitation. The final moment locked me into this story. Because episode 1 of The Walking Dead didn't hook me with horror, it hooked me with humanity, with tension, and the promise that this world was bigger, crueler, and more emotional than anything we had seen. And that's why, for me, there is no question, Season 1's best episode had to be the one that started it all. That's why Season 1, Episode 1, Days Gone By, is my favorite episode for the first season of The Walking Dead. It wasn't the biggest or the loudest, but because it tells us right from the start that this story is about people, humanity, and what it costs to survive. Now I'd love to hear from you. What was your favorite episode from Season 1? Was it the pilot like me, or was it a completely different moment that hooked you? Drop it in the comments. I try to read every one. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, hype the video. It really helps other Walking Dead fans find it and lets me know you want more episodes like this. I'll be back soon with my favorite episode from Season 2, and I'll see you in the next one.